a lot of young women dream of being featured on Vogue. For me to be given this opportunity is incredibly exciting.
Look at the photograph. A young woman stands beneath the bright Madrid sun, wearing an oversized polo Ralph Lauren denim shirt and a raffia hat tilted just enough to catch the light. Behind the camera is photographer Miguel Rigo. In front of it is Alexandra Eala, a 20-year-old tennis player from the Philippines. At first glance, it looks like another polished fashion editorial. It wasn't. It was a statement. Because the image appeared on the digital cover of Town and Country, a magazine founded in 1846, with nearly 180 years of history. For generations, its pages have chronicled royalty, aristocrats, philanthropists, cultural icons, and the circles of wealth and influence that most people only read about. Yet in August 2025, the magazine made a remarkable editorial decision. For the first time in its history, Town and Country placed a tennis player on one of its digital covers. And it wasn't a Grand Slam champion. It wasn't a top 10 superstar. It wasn't someone carrying multiple WTA trophies. It was Alexandra Eala, a Filipina ranked outside the world's top 50, without a WTA singles title, and without a Grand Slam quarterfinal to her name. That photograph is the center of today's story. Not because of what Alexandra Eala had already accomplished, but because of what the magazine believed she was about to become. To understand why this matters, you first have to understand what Town and Country represents. Published by Hearst, it isn't a sports magazine. It covers luxury, fashion, culture, philanthropy, and influential people. Every cover is an editorial choice about who matters, not simply who is winning. So when the editors selected Alexandra Eala in August 2025, they weren't reporting success. They were predicting significance. That distinction changes everything. Fast forward just 10 months. The player photographed in Madrid transformed that prediction into reality. She reached the round of 16 at Indian Wells, becoming the first Filipina ever to accomplish that feat. She advanced to the final at Eastbourne during the grasscourt season. On June 7, 2026, she captured her first WTA singles title at the Birmingham Open, after rallying from a set down against Nikola Bartunkova. One day later, her ranking climbed to a career-high world number 33. The breakthrough arrived. But here's what makes the story remarkable. The cover came first. That's the question thoughtful tennis fans should ask. Did Town and Country move too early? In August 2025, Alexandra Eala was well known among dedicated tennis followers, respected for her junior Grand Slam success, and her development at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca. But outside the sport, she remained largely unfamiliar. Most luxury magazines follow a simple formula. They wait. They wait for the Grand Slam title. They wait for the breakthrough season. They wait until the player becomes impossible to ignore. History supports that approach. Sloane Stephens appeared on major lifestyle covers after winning the 2017 US Open. Coco Gauff's biggest fashion features accelerated after her slam breakthrough. Naomi Osaka's magazine covers followed Grand Slam victories, not predictions. That's how the industry usually works. Magazine covers require months of planning, expensive photo shoots, and editorial commitment. If the subject fails to deliver, the cover ages poorly. Editors don't like making public bets they can't defend. Yet Town and Country did exactly that. It chose a player still building her resume, and placed her on the masthead of one of America's oldest lifestyle publications. That decision created the central tension of this story. Was it premature? Or had the editors simply recognized something the tennis world hadn't fully appreciated yet? The simplest fact is also the most important. When the cover was published, Alexandra Eala had no WTA title. No Grand Slam quarterfinal. No place among the sport's biggest stars. The magazine wasn't celebrating completed greatness. It was investing in potential. It was introducing its readers to someone they believed would matter. That alone made the cover unusual. But another detail makes it even more significant. The feature was written by Emily Berwick, Town and Country's deputy digital editor. When the story launched on August 19, 2025, Berwick shared her excitement on Instagram, calling it the dream to write my second digital cover story for Town and Country, and noting that it was the publication's very first tennis digital cover. Inside the magazine, this wasn't treated as a routine athlete profile. It marked the beginning of an entirely new category. Then came the next 10 months. At Indian Wells in March 2026, Alexandra Eala made history by reaching the fourth round, becoming the first Filipina ever to do so. Town and Country followed the achievement with another feature. The magazine hadn't simply published the cover and moved on. It continued telling the story. That's an important piece of evidence. The editors didn't just place a bet. They stayed invested as the prediction unfolded. Because a magazine cover captures only one moment. A tennis career is built over hundreds of matches, thousands of training sessions, and countless hours when nobody is watching. The cover froze one frame in time and quietly declared, "This is someone worth remembering." Everything that followed was Alexandra Eala's responsibility. And then Birmingham happened. On June 7, 2026, at Edgbaston Priory Club, she dropped the opening set against Nikola Bartunkova before mounting an impressive comeback to claim her first WTA singles championship. It was also her first professional title on grass. A surface where many doubted she could immediately succeed. The trophy changed her resume. The ranking climbed to world number 33. And somewhere inside Hearst's archives, that August 2025 cover suddenly looked far less like a gamble and far more like foresight. Then there's one final detail that feels especially meaningful today. In the original cover story, Alexandra Eala said, "The only thing I can give back to my country is to inspire." Read in August 2025, those words sounded like ambition. A young athlete describing the impact she hoped to have someday. Read them now, after Indian Wells, after Eastbourne, after Birmingham, with millions of Filipinos following every match. They carry a completely different weight. They sound less like a dream. And more like a promise already being fulfilled. That is why this cover matters. Not because it celebrated an established superstar, but because it recognized one before the rest of the world caught up. That is the emotional turning point of today's story. The sentence itself has never changed. Everything around it has. Then, just 3 days after lifting the Birmingham trophy, reality arrived with a reminder that tennis never stops testing its stars. On June 10, 2026, at the Queen's Club Championships in London, Alexandra Eala fell to American teenager Eva Jovic in straight sets, 6-2, 6-2. Her 6-match grass court winning streak came to an end. The magazine cover did not shield her from defeat. And perhaps that's exactly why this story matters. Because this isn't really about one tournament. It's about how culture chooses its future before the results are complete. Look at the players lifestyle magazines have traditionally celebrated. Sloane Stephens appeared on major fashion covers after winning the 2017 US Open. Coco Gauff's biggest lifestyle features followed her Grand Slam breakthrough. Naomi Osaka's global magazine presence exploded only after she had already collected major trophies. The pattern is obvious. Lifestyle magazines usually arrive after history has already been written. The cover is the victory lap. What Town and Country did with Alexandra Eala was fundamentally different. The magazine published its cover before the biggest milestones existed. Before the WTA title. Before the career-high ranking. Before the Indian Wells breakthrough. Before the Eastbourne final. That wasn't sports journalism reacting to success. It was editorial vision helping define what success might look like before everyone else recognized it. That is the real cultural story. One of the clearest voices behind that decision belongs to Emily Berwick, Deputy Digital Editor at Town and Country and the writer of the feature. When the cover was released on August 19, 2025, Berwick shared her excitement publicly on Instagram, describing it as the dream to write my second digital cover story for Town and Country, and have it be our first tennis digital cover. That statement matters. It wasn't corporate marketing. It wasn't a press release. It was the journalist herself explaining why the project meant so much inside the publication. From the editorial side, the message was unmistakable. This wasn't just another profile. It was the beginning of something new. The tennis world was sending similar signals. After facing Eala during Wimbledon 2025, 2024 Wimbledon champion Barbora Krejcikova offered an assessment that now feels remarkably prophetic. She said Eala was smashing the ball, painting the lines, and concluded with a simple prediction: wow, it's the next generation coming up. She's going to be really good in a couple of years. Think about what those two voices represent. One came from the editorial offices of a 180-year-old lifestyle publication. The other came from a reigning Wimbledon champion inside the locker room. Different worlds. The same conclusion. Both recognized Alexandra Eala before her biggest professional achievements arrived. Now step back even further. Look at the broader editorial direction Town and Country has been building. The magazine featured Iga Swiatek in 2024. It highlighted Mira Andreeva's remarkable French Open run in 2026. It returned to Alexandra Eala following her breakthrough at Indian Wells. Within one of America's oldest luxury publications, tennis has quietly become part of the conversation. And Alexandra Eala isn't standing on the sidelines. She has become one of the young faces helping define that conversation. For Philippine tennis, that carries enormous significance. There is no modern precedent for a Filipino tennis player appearing on a digital cover of an American luxury publication at this level. Philippine media, including ABS-CBN, GMA Network, Rappler, and the Philippine Daily Inquirer, covered the feature not simply as sports news, but as a cultural milestone. That framing makes sense. Because the achievement extended far beyond rankings or match results. A prestigious New York publication introduced a young Filipina athlete to an entirely different audience. That kind of visibility reaches well beyond the WTA tour. It becomes part of a larger conversation about representation, identity, and who gets invited into influential cultural spaces. Fans understood that immediately. When Eala shared the cover on Instagram, the post drew more than 52,000 likes, with thousands of comments from Filipinos around the world celebrating what the image represented. Many weren't talking about rankings. They weren't discussing forehands or backhands. They were talking about pride. About finally seeing someone who looked like them occupying a space where they had rarely been represented before. That reaction confirms something the magazine itself appeared to recognize. This was never only about tennis. But stories worth telling also leave room for disappointment. Only days after the biggest victory of her career, Alexandra Eala walked onto the courts at Queen's Club and suffered one of her toughest defeats of the season. Iva Jovic won comfortably. The Birmingham winning streak was over. There is no verified post-match quote from Eala that accurately captures her reaction. They don't finish them, The road ahead remains just as compelling. Bad Homburg comes next. Then Wimbledon. If her ranking holds, Alexandra Eala will enter the championships as a seeded player for the first time in her professional career, a milestone that would have seemed ambitious only a year ago. The runway is there. The work continues. So look at that photograph one more time. A young woman wearing an oversized Polo Ralph Lauren denim shirt. A raffia hat catching the Madrid sunlight. Above her, the masthead of a magazine with nearly 180 years of history. For almost 2 centuries, town and country chose who deserved to appear in its pages. In August 2025, it chose one Filipina. Today, that decision feels far more understandable than it did then. The publication's own writer called it the magazine's first tennis digital cover. A reigning Wimbledon champion called Eala part of the next generation. And the words Alexandra Eala spoke during that interview continue to resonate. The only thing I can give back to my country is to inspire. When those words were published, they sounded like hope. After Indian Wells, after Eastbourne, after Birmingham, they sound increasingly like a promise being fulfilled. The loss at Queen's Club is real. The journey remains unfinished. The biggest titles are still ahead. But Alexandra Eala now occupies a place that very few players her age have ever reached. And almost none of them arrived there before the trophies did. That's what makes this story remarkable. Not that a magazine celebrated a champion, but that it recognized one before the rest of the world fully believed. If the months ahead unfold the way many believe they might, with Bad Homburg, Wimbledon, and perhaps even greater milestones still to come, that August 2025 cover will no longer look like a bold prediction. It will simply look like the earliest chapter in a story that was already beginning.